Welcome back to another episode of Catching Up with Coach. There's been a lot of information in the NBA world over the last 48 to 72 hours involving, in my opinion, one of the top three players in the world. I would have said 3 years ago, maybe even up to 2 years ago, that I thought he was the best player in the world in Giannis Antetokounmpo. My idea of the best player in the world is someone who can certainly make an impact at both ends of the floor, offensively and defensively. And at one time, that was him. For a stretch of years, that was him. The Milwaukee Bucks obviously won a championship in 2021. They beat the Phoenix Suns. And they had been building something for a long time, putting the right pieces around Giannis, getting stretch bigs like Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis, getting finally a big guard in Drew Holiday, having another scorer next to him in Chris Middleton. Like Milwaukee did a phenomenal job at putting the right pieces around Giannis. When we beat them in 2019, that was tough. That team could have easily went to the finals and they would have taken down Golden State because Golden State would not be able to match up with their bigs. Luckily, Drew Holiday was not on the team then. It might have been a different story for Toronto. I'm just a big Drew Holiday fan. Obviously, I still would think that we would have taken them down, but Holiday was the missing piece for them at that time. So, so Giannis, top three player in the world, maybe the best, arguably the best two-way player in the world. He wants out. He's done everything he can for Milwaukee, and it's time. These things happen. They've happened with star players in the past in all sports. To a degree, it happened not to this level, but it happened with Anthony Davis with the Pelicans. Happened with Paul George when he was with Indiana and OKC, and I'll get to that in a bit. It's trying to think of some other big stars that this has happened to. You could say James Harden to a degree in Houston, but Giannis is arguably still in the prime of his career. He's 31 years old. He's had some injuries the last few years, and calf injuries are nagging, but you worry how that could lead to the Achilles because there's a lot of calf and Achilles injuries today in the NBA. In the 80s, as my friend Beyond would say, a lot of back injuries because there's a lot of guys playing in the post, battling in the post. But today, it's a lot of running up and down the floor. And these are big guys who would have played in the post back in the 80s and now they're like playing as guards, more or less. So Giannis has obviously been hurt, and now he's probably going to be traded. So I want to take today's show, first of all, to say what's a recent trade that brought back players and picks. Obviously, we know about the Paul George one that involved SGA. Paul George was sent to the Clippers. SGA came back to Oklahoma City, and they're still reaping the benefits of basically a decade worth of picks coming from the Clippers. They also had traded Russell Westbrook at the time, and they got picks there. OKC still has a chance to have two top 10 picks. I don't know if they will because the Clippers are winning now, but they're still going to have some big time picks in this upcoming draft. And they were able to project out and say, we want a dynasty. We don't want all of our picks right away, like in 2020, 2021. We want the picks all spread out for the whole decade. So we have perennial, consistent winning the whole time. It was a genius of Sam Presti to really take the long-term game. But I'll give Sam Presti also has the backing of ownership. Not a lot of owners probably would do that because OKC in the beginning of this decade was bad. They were not very good. They got Chet. eventually. They got Jalen Williams. Jalen Williams might be one of the best picks in that franchise's history, considering where they picked him and like who he was in college. This wasn't a big time college standout. So he's one of their best value picks of all time, in my opinion. An interesting trade that was also happened was the Anthony Davis trade. I don't mean the one for Luca. I'm talking the one with the Pelicans. And part of me wonders, could Milwaukee go that route as well? Because the Pelicans, for people that don't remember, they got a haul in that deal and then ended up with the first overall pick in the draft. So to revisit the trade, at the time, this was back in 2019, 2020 per se, because the Lakers won the title in 2020. So yeah, it was right after we won the title. The New Orleans Pelicans traded Anthony Davis to the Lakers. The Pelicans, in return, got Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, 3 first-round picks, and 1 pick swap. Now, these picks, who do they turn out to be? Jackson Hayes, still in the league, starts some with LA. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, having a really good year in Atlanta. Herb Jones, yep, pretty good. They found him in the second round. And Dyson Daniels, again, starting in Atlanta. So for Anthony Davis, the New Orleans Pelicans got Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, Jackson Hayes, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Herb Jones, and Dyson Daniels. That's a haul. You got like 7 or 8 players there who are still in the NBA, still playing meaningful roles. Some are stars, like Brandon Ingram. Ingram has become the best out of all of them. And at the time the trade happened, he was the main piece in the deal. He was just a rookie in LA, but you could kind of project if this guy was going to be good. And Lonzo Ball was in that deal as well. And you're like, man, Lonzo could be one of the great point guards in the league for the next decade or so. But then the injuries piled up with him, and the whole mess just basically happened in New Orleans, which was too bad because I honestly thought they had something building after that Anthony Davis trade, plus getting the number 1 pick. They had Lonzo, Ingram, Zion right there, all in their youth. They had Josh Hart too. They eventually would draft Dyson Daniels. Like they had something building, but they messed it up. A lot of injuries, I get that, but there's been more things been said about the Pelicans organization in terms of their training and workout regimens as compared to other NBA teams. Not really trying to get into that discussion, but that's an example of a trade that happened where Pelicans got young players and a lot of picks back. One of them was Dyson Daniels, for sure, who's doing really well today, outside of Ingram and Lonzo. Okay, so what I want to do today is let's go over some of these rumored deals. And I have my opinion, which I think Milwaukee should do. And if I was Giannis, you definitely got to explore that. So what we're going to do okay. Obviously, yes, we're using Fanspo, as everyone else does. So let's look at some of these potential deals. Let's take Golden State Warriors. And I had a conversation with Beyond and Hopeful last night a little bit on this. I think Golden State can make a pretty intriguing offer to a guy like Giannis. So Giannis would go to the Warriors. I think you would also have to include Kyle Kuzma because if I'm Milwaukee, get off his money. Coming back, you would need Jimmy Butler. Oh, obviously, and probably Giannis's brother would have to go with him. So you can send back Jimmy Butler. You have to make the money work, and that's key to this. Jonathan Kuminga. Okay. And I'm greedy. If I'm Milwaukee, I want pods too. Okay. Now, if you don't put Thanasis in, it's okay. We're just doing a 3 for 3 right now. For the record, I don't even know if this is going to work yet. Will this work? It fails because it is not close enough. Okay. So we have to revisit that deal again. So it does fail for this. We will include, let's just include Gary Harris. Thanasis will go somewhere. He'll get released or something like that. So if we do this one, this gets us really close. This is before, obviously, all, oh, and that fails too. Okay. It's because you are under the allowable amount of $20 million and the Warriors are hard capped. Okay. When I did this the other night, it seemed to go a little smoother. Let me see here. Can we try this? That fails too. Well, I am just wasting your time right now. So, obviously, when we look at a deal like this, Giannis and Kuzma, I think, would be part of the deal. Let's just for a second, they'll get to a point where they can make this deal with one of the minimum guys. But if I'm Milwaukee, I want Pods, I want Kaminga, I got to take Butler, and the Warriors have like a million picks they could give up. They can give up this year's pick, 2026. They can give up 2027, 2028, 2029, 31, 32. Now, you want a lot of these picks for Giannis, if I'm them, later. That was the OKC model for this. You could probably give up a pick this year too, because you've got to get in this year's draft. Okay, so you could do 2026, 2029, 2031, 2032. The next two drafts, as reported, are not very good 2027, 2028. And maybe that's one where you can throw in some pick swaps in there. So the Golden State Warriors, in theory, could offer Jimmy Butler, Jonathan Kaminga, and Brandon Podzinski and get like 4 first-round picks for Giannis. Now, why does that make sense for Milwaukee? You get to finally see what Jonathan Kaminga is. Remember, this guy is a highly talented player. He's not getting much run in Golden State for whatever reason, but this would give him an opportunity to finally see what he has. He's a twitchy player. This is a guy who I think has a lot of two-way ability, but he just hasn't been given the chance yet. Pods, good young player. He can shoot, kind of can slither his way into the lane. I think Milwaukee would be smart for part of their rebuild to have a couple of guys. Jimmy Butler is here for cap reasons. I think after next year, his contract is up. So you come off of that after next year, and you got all of these picks to some degree. Now, maybe you do get the 2020, 20, or 2027 pick swaps. Okay. So you can get some pick swaps in there too. So Golden State can really make a compelling offer. And why does that work for them? Well, they get Giannis Antetokounmpo, and you're prioritizing Steph Curry. You're prioritizing what he has left to give him and Draymond Green. You have a lineup of Steph and Draymond and Giannis going into the playoffs. And even a guy like Kuzma who can stretch the floor and get some buckets for them as well. You become a threat in the West. And next year, as Steph Curry gets older, you're still a threat. So there are ways in which this can work. And I've done it before, people. I do apologize. It worked yesterday, didn't work today. Anyways, you can get to the money. You can get to the picks with Milwaukee. It's all good. It definitely will work. Okay. So Golden State, that certainly is one that could work. So now, why don't we go to the Atlanta Hawks, who have been rumored with Giannis. Okay. So we're looking at Giannis Antetokounmpo going to the Atlanta Hawks. This is where it gets tricky with what Atlanta can give up. So Atlanta could give up the expiring contract of Kristaps Porzingis. The question is, does Atlanta want to give up Jalen Johnson? Now, if I'm Milwaukee, you make that deal more intriguing for me if you're able to do that. But if I can't do that, obviously Porzingis, you get the former number one pick in Zachary Risachet. You can also possibly add a Luke Kennard to make it work. We'll just try this first. It's probably not going to work because it does work. Now Milwaukee would have to try to waive some players. But the point is, it's not so much these three, well, with Risachet, it's that what Atlanta can give. So Atlanta will receive the more favorable of Milwaukee's 2026 first round pick and New Orleans 2026 first round pick, and Milwaukee receives the less favorable, blah, blah, blah. This is what you want in the deal, is that pick. You kind of, in theory, can get a near top 5 pick back. You're also looking at 2027 New Orleans Pelicans or Milwaukee. There's swaps there that can be done. You're looking at 2029 if you're Atlanta or you're Milwaukee. You're looking at 2031. You're looking at 2032, probably some swaps. Okay. And probably in 2030, you get the right to swap. Okay. You can get 4 first-round picks for Giannis. Obviously, something else would probably have to go back to Atlanta as well from Milwaukee. But Risachet, Porzingis, Luke Kennard, but you're getting all of these picks. And that is what's key. Okay. Atlanta can offer a good package. Now, obviously, if they were put Jalen Johnson in the deal, it's probably a wrap. Because if you're Milwaukee and you can get picks and Jalen Johnson, you're silly not to do that. There's your building piece or a building piece, and you're going to be able to put all kinds of good picks around him. So that would be a good deal for Milwaukee, and obviously Atlanta gets Giannis. If they're just looking, let's go get Giannis. We now have Trae Young, and Trae Young and Giannis actually would have been a good fit. But you don't worry about that if you can just go and get Giannis. Okay, so we have the Atlanta deal. Obviously, it doesn't have Jalen Johnson, but a lot of this is just money comes off your books. You get Zachary Risachet. You get the big picks this year, next year, 2029, 2031. Get some pick swaps in there as well. It's not too bad. Okay. So we're looking at Milwaukee and Atlanta so far. You know what? Let's go to Toronto. Now, it has been rumored that the Raptors are not including Scotty or Brandon Ingram. This would be a really tough deal to make for Giannis if you're not including them. And I get it, Toronto's shouldn't include them. But again, it's just going to be tough to make. So Giannis would have to go back. RJ likely out the door. You better hope they take Pirtle on. I don't know what they're going to do with Pirtle and Miles Turner. You might have to send them quickly, quite honestly. And there's a world where you have to send them CMB to make this right. Now, does this work? It does. So RJ Barrett, Jakob Pirtle, and Colin Murray-Boyles. With Murray-Boyles, you're getting the young prospect that you might be able to help build around. Pirtle is there for the money. And then you get RJ Barrett. Now, if you were to include quickly with this, then Milwaukee would also have to send someone else. They would have to probably send us a point guard, which they don't really have. Cole Anthony, maybe, but you got to try to make the money work. But if this is the framework of the best deal that you can throw at Milwaukee, you obviously have to give up picks. This year's pick, see you later. 2027, that might be Milwaukee can swap that. 2028, out the door. 2029, rights to swap. Okay. 2030, if you're wanting that. 2031, you're wanting that. 2032. Okay. So the Toronto Raptors could offer RJ Barrett, Jakob Poeltl, Colin Murray Boyles, and about 5 first-round picks for Giannis Antetokounmpo. 2026, 2028, 2030, 2031, 2032. And it fails because Toronto would only have 12 standard contracts. So obviously Milwaukee would have to send a player or two back. They'd have to be minimum contract players. So maybe a Cole Anthony would go back if we were to put him in here. We would also fix the little pick swaps there. They would figure that out. But the point of the deal is your main players you'd be sending out to make the money work, which we did before, is RJ Poeltl and Murray Boyles, and you work out the picks afterwards. But you'd have to send out 4 or 5 picks for sure to make this work. Okay. So right now we've looked at Golden State, we've looked at Toronto, and we've looked at Atlanta. Right, I would say, in my opinion, Golden State still has the best offer potentially on the table. Here's the other team that should get into the Giannis sweepstakes. They say they're not going to, but I find that they should get into it. So, the San Antonio Spurs. When you have a generational type player on your roster who is near unguardable, and then you bring in someone else who is also unguardable, why not go for it? That's something I don't get. So let's figure it out. Giannis goes to the Spurs. They can make this work. Going back, you can send Devin Vassell. You can send probably Harrison Barnes. They can get off the money too. And you have to give up one of Dylan Harper or Stephen Castle. Now, the Bucks would have $58 million incoming. It's okay. We can send them. You know what? You want the brother? I don't know where I have Thanasis right now. Let's send him out. So just on its surface, would this trade work? It would. There's your deal. Giannis and his brother to San Antonio. The Bucks get Devin Vassell and Dylan Harper to start your backcourt, and you get Harrison Barnes. That's the main part of the deal. You would also, the Spurs, look what they can send in terms of picks. They got 23 picks on here. So you can send the more favorable of the 2026 first round pick, trade that to the Bucks. You can send Atlanta's 2027. That's probably actually might have to be a pick swap, actually. So we'll leave that. San Antonio gets the right to swap. Okay. 2028 pick. They got swap rights with Boston. 2029 unprotected. 2030, you definitely want that. You definitely want the Sacramento swap rights. I mean, it is unlimited what you can do. I know because they're going to say consecutive drafts. Don't worry about that. The point is that the San Antonio Spurs, if they want, can make the best deal with pick swaps and unprotected picks. They can do it. And Milwaukee gets a top young guard potentially in Dylan Harper. You get a backcourt mate in Devin Vassell. You get off of Harrison Barnes money. You have a building block right there, especially if you're going into the draft. And if you're Milwaukee, could you imagine if you were getting Cam Boozer and Dylan Harper to start off your franchise, or AJ DeBanza, or Caleb Wilson? That's not a bad starting point if you're the Milwaukee Bucks. So the two that I would be considering if I was Milwaukee, I can't consider Toronto because there's no Scotty. If I'm Milwaukee, I want Scotty. The only thing Atlanta has is that pick. That's the main stuff because unless they include Jalen Johnson, I don't really see why Milwaukee would want to do that. Even with Risa Shea, I don't think you can sell him. If it was Sarr, obviously yes. If it was Castle, you can sell that. So I think San Antonio should have the choice between Harper or Castle. I would probably go with Dylan Harper. No, his father played in the next state over in Chicago, so there's a bit of a connection there. I like the deal with Golden State because Golden State will fall off in 2 or 3 years, and then you got all of their picks, which you can build, and then the next decade from now until 2035 or 2032 per se, you could have that OKC run with Milwaukee just by drafting well and trying to have cap flexibility as well. Finding that guy. Kaminga and Pods, along with 4 or 5 first round picks, is not bad. The Spurs trade, Dylan Harper, Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes, again, that's mainly money. With all the pick swaps and other teams' picks that they have, that's quite something as well. And it's good for the Spurs too, because it's like you are prioritizing Wemby's timeline. LeBron James wished that Cleveland would have prioritized his timeline when he was there the first time. He got them to the finals. He had no reason to get that team to the finals against the Spurs. He dragged that team kicking and screaming. We've seen it time and time again. If I am the San Antonio Spurs, go and get Giannis. You have all the assets, and you will still have assets. That's the thing, because you've acquired so many the last few years. Good question here. Let's see. Our guy, Mouth of the North. Coach, how much discount would you expect due to age, injury, and likely request? Mouth, what do you mean by this question? You can further clarify what you mean by this. Are you saying about Giannis's as he gets older and stuff like that, and an injury concern? If that is what you mean, then that might play to some degree, but Milwaukee for a Giannis deal. Okay. Well, Giannis is 31. He's not 27. He's had some injuries, yes, but I still think you're going to get the mega deal. They've made it clear they want the blue chip prospect and picks. Golden State deal, you're banking on that Kaminga can develop, which there is a possibility could. He's 23 years old, just hasn't really gotten the chance. And you're getting Pods, but you're getting all those picks when Golden State will likely fall off because Steph Curry's not going to be there forever. If I'm the Milwaukee Bucks, I'm prioritizing that. If I am looking at the Spurs, I get my blue chip prospect, Dylan Harper. Awesome. Great. I get Devin Vassell. There's my backcourt for the next 5, 6, 7 years. And now I'm getting all these picks from them too. And there's, again, picks from other teams that the Spurs have. And I think that's kind of key in this as well. And to be good for the Spurs. So I think As much as I like the Golden State deal, I know I'm kind of going back on myself. I think the Spurs, if you could somehow convince them to say, let's do a deal. Let's go get Dylan. We'll take Dylan Harper. We'll take Vassell. We want Giannis. We want Giannis and Wemby. Who is going to guard that in the West for the next 5 years? Talk about prioritizing a generational player's timeline in Wemby. And Giannis is generational too. To have those two guys on your squad. OKC, I don't know if OKC would win. That unless someone's injured. How are you going to match up with that? And then you had Stephen Castle. And you had De'Aaron Fox. They would need another shooter. That wouldn't be a challenge to pick up. So I think that would be the play, is to go get them. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments. Which one of the deals do you think that you liked that I showed? Which ones would you prefer? Let me know in the comments. Thank you very much, everybody. Please take care and have a good day.